When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news is here.
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
Joining us today is somebody whose journey in Indian cinema is almost parallel to independent India's journey. Almost 7-8 decades that she has acted, directed, censored Indian cinema. She has been a vital part, a vital cog of India's journey through all these 7-8 decades. Asha Parekh, welcome to NDTV.
Hello.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Asha ji, you were part of the golden era of Indian cinema. Worked with the best filmmakers, iconic actors. How do you look at your own journey?
Well, it's been a very long journey, and I enjoyed being where I was, and the adulation of the fans was really very great, and I enjoyed it.
And more than the enjoyment, you contributed immensely to the growth of Indian cinema through, the years that it was actually growing up.
Yeah, it was a golden era, I would say, and we had lovely music, we had lovely lyrics, very good directors, very good cameramen. Not that we don't have them now, but at that time it was a different thing altogether.
And 1960s and 1970s, there was a lot of larger than life, depiction in cinema. How did you see the transition? I mean, your own journey and the transition of Indian cinema.
Well, the films which I did were happy-go-lucky cinema.
Like you.
Yes, and the transition which has taken place has been good, I think so. We are coming out with more realistic films, and sometimes the films are not good because
Hello and welcome. You're watching NDTV. I am Aditi Bhardwaj, and a very happy new year to our viewers who are watching us right now. How did you spend it? Well, we'll more have lined up on this news edition. So let's take a look at the top headlines we're tracking at this hour. Washington sanctions Iranian and Russian entities, accusing them of attempting to interfere in 2024 presidential elections. Alleges entities aimed to stoke socio-political tensions and influence US electorate. Ukraine Defense Forces have shared a footage of sea drone downing a Russian Mi-8 helicopter off Crimea in first reported successful C-2 air strike of its kind in ongoing war. US President-elect Trump snipes at House Democrats, urges Republicans to be smart and tough in the face of potential Democratic efforts to delay confirmation of Trump 2.0 nominees. In a first for South Korea, court issues arrest warrant against impeached South Korean President Yoon. Five years on, China and WHO jostle over COVID transparency. International Health Organization says China yet to share data while Beijing claims sharing all information without holding back, quote-unquote, anything. And from Mumbai to London and Kenya to Hong Kong, world welcomes 2025 with big cheers. In the top focus here on NDTV right now, South Korea's acting president Choi Sang-mong appointed 2 justices to the Constitutional Court on Tuesday in an attempt to avoid further conflict. At a cabinet meeting, he emphasized the need for mediation and compromise. The country has been plunged into a huge political crisis since President Yoon Suk-yeol was impeached after imposing martial law earlier this month. He stressed the appointment of the justices was out of desperation to end political uncertainty and social conflict in order to prevent an economic crisis. Listening to what he said.
존경하는 국민 여러분.
다만 여야 합의를 통해 헌법재판관을 임명해온 헌정사의 관행을 강조한 전임 권한대행의 원칙을 존중하고 그간 진행되어온 여야 간 임명 논의 과정을 고려하여 여야 간 합의에 접근한 것으로 확인된 정계선 조한창 후보에 대해서는 오늘 즉시 임명하되 나머지 한 분은 여야의 합의가 확인되는 대로 임명하겠습니다.
And joining me to talk more over this, I have with me Bill Gallo, Seoul Bureau Chief of Voice of America. Thank you so much, Bill, for joining us and speaking over it. What do you think? When will the arrest of former president might happen?
Well, we're in this very weird sort of limbo period where authorities have been given permission by the court to forcibly detain President Yoon. But honestly, we don't know when that will happen. This morning, investigative authorities said they intend to carry out that arrest warrant by the end of its deadline, which is next Monday. However, there's a question about just how they would do it and how much of a fight President Yoon's security detail will push back on. So essentially, until now, the Presidential Security Service, which Yoon is still entitled to even as an impeached president, has not allowed investigative authorities to carry out court-approved search warrants on presidential sites. They're still indicating that would be the case even though there is a detention or arrest warrant. However, investigative authorities are really warning at this point, if Yoon's security service does prevent this court-approved arrest attempt, then they themselves will be violating the law. It's leading to a lot of uncertainty and honestly, even some fears about small-scale clashes, perhaps among security forces, although it's not clear how serious that would be, even if it happened at this point.
But how do you see the acting president's attempt to stabilize the country?
Yeah, so what he did yesterday was essentially a compromise move. The opposition has demanded that the acting president approve 3 new constitutional court judges. And what he did yesterday was approve 2 of them and said he'll wait on the 3rd until both sides can sort of agree. Now, what that means is, for people who haven't been following this really closely, basically adding any judges to the court at this point increases the odds that Yoon will be removed from office by the Constitutional Court. There are usually 9 judges on that court. Right now, there are only 6. Yesterday, the acting president appointed 2 more. That means that there can be essentially 2 defections, 2 people who side with Yoon, and he still would have to go. So essentially, this was meeting, in the middle compared to what both sides are calling for right now in the South Korean political system.
Right. Bill, how was the impeachment, how has the impeachment of actually Yoon Suk-yeol impacted South Korean politics?
Yeah, it's a giant mess. Every week it seems like there's a new constitutional crisis. And that sort of phrase is often overused, I think, even in democratic contexts like this. But it's really a legitimate use of the word. We're in really unprecedented territory here. We're on the third president in a month. There's lots of people enacting positions. The rules aren't clearly laid out for who has the authority to do what. There's lots of legal challenges. There's lots of politics at play. However, it does seem that I think most people assume that Yoon will be removed from office at the end of this. It still could last many days. I mean, the Constitutional Court has 180 days to rule on Yoon's impeachment. But at the end of it, there is sort of a growing expectation, I would even say, that Yoon will be removed eventually.
So reading the current scenario, how do you see the role of acting president in shaping South Korean future? Or who might come forward and take the role of the president?
Yeah, it's so tricky right now. I mean, in some ways, you've got to really feel for this acting president. This is a guy who didn't run for president. I think it was probably nowhere near his radar. And now he's not only taking the role of acting president, but many other senior positions who have been impeached since we saw these sort of successive impeachments. He's really controlling quite a bit here, and the country faces lots of crises, including that plane crash that everyone is talking about. This is really an ongoing investigation and a very sensitive situation. And there's also other, big political problems that are at play here. There's been a nurses and doctors strike for a long time, which is, in some ways paralyzed parts of the South Korean medical system. There's just a lot of things going on that an acting government is not really completely well suited to deal with. So it's really worth keeping an eye on many different aspects of South Korean politics and economic things going forward.
Certainly, and we hope so there is stability in South Korea soon after what is happening right now. Thank you so much, Bill, for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Now, thousands of people led by students rallied in Bangladesh's Dhaka calling for the prosecution of ousted Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and those responsible for hundreds of deaths in a mass uprising against her government in July. The anti-discrimination student movement organized what they call a march for unity at the central Shahid Minar, a national monument in Dhaka. Protesters chanted slogans calling for Hasina's trial and the banning of her. Awami League Party is also one of the demands that the student protesters are raising against her. Hasina fled to India on August 5, remember, after weeks of violence in which authorities say hundreds of people were killed and thousands more were injured on orders of her government. The uprising ended the 15-year rule of the country's longest-serving prime minister, who began a fourth consecutive term in January following an election boycotted by the major opposition parties. Chinese President Xi Jinping has declared that no one can stop China's reunification with Taiwan, a big statement coming in. In a televised New Year's speech, Xi reiterated his stance, calling the people on both sides of the Taiwan Strait one family and warning pro-independence forces both within Taiwan and abroad. This comes as Beijing continues its military activities near Taiwan with warships and planes conducting frequent operations in the region. Taiwan, which rejects Beijing's sovereignty claims, insists its future can only be decided by its own people. Tensions remain high, especially after Taiwan elected a new president in May, whom Beijing labels a separatist. The year also saw large-scale Chinese war games around Taiwan, while U.S. arms sales to the island have added to the strain between Washington and Beijing. Chinese President Xi Jinping said that China's economy is on course to expand by 5% in 2025, meeting official growth targets and rebutting concerns that Donald Trump's incoming U.S. administration will harm Beijing's prospects in the new year. Xi sought to allay fears that the world's second-largest economy would falter over the next 12 months after the government battled to prevent a slide towards recession during 2024. Xi said China's economy was overall stable and progressing. He said risks in key areas were effectively addressed while employment and prices remained steady.
当前经济运行面临一些新情况，有外部环境不确定性的挑战，有新旧动能转换的压力，但这些经过努力是可以克服的。我们从来都是在风雨洗礼中成长，在历经考验中壮大。大家要充满信心。
Now, China has denied its involvement in the hacking of several US Treasury Department workstations. The agency accused Chinese hackers of remotely accessing workstations and unclassified documents after compromising a third-party software service provider. Remember, the US Treasury Department did not provide details on how many workstations had been accessed or what sort of documents the hackers may have obtained.
对于此类缺乏证据的无端指控，我们已经多次表明了立场。中方一贯反对各种形式的黑客攻击，我们更反对出于政治目的散布针对中国的虚假信息。
And with that, we're slipping into a very short break. More news lined up.
I now request the Honorable Prime Minister to launch NDTV World and address the summit.
It was the grand launch of NDTV World by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. NDTV World, as he laid out his vision for the India century at the NDTV World Summit.
ऐसी सदी जिसमें भारत के प्रयासों से दुनिया में स्थिरता आए,
in the presence of those who are shaping our future.
मेरी तरफ से आपको ढेर सारी शुभकामनाएं हैं।
NDTV World, your new home for global news is here.
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
Actor of the Year. By the way, my dear friends, you know, probably I am one of the first ones in the history of NDTV to have this rare, proud honor of announcing and honoring as in the place of a real hero to a reel of my own movie, Shrikant. Without a further ado, with great admiration, love and due respect, the best actor of the year goes to Shri Rajkumar Rao. Please come on to the stage.
Ladies and gentlemen, Rajkumar Rao's versatility, dedication to meaningful cinema, and consistent delivery of powerful performances continued in 2024. His recent roles in Shrikant, Mr. and Mrs. Mahi, Stree 2, and Wiki Vidya Ka Wo Wala video showcases his deep commitment to...
Israel's ambassador to the United Nations has issued what he called a final warning to Yemen's Iran-backed Houthi militants to halt missile attacks on Israel. Ambassador Danny Danon has said that Houthis risk the same miserable fate as Hamas, Hezbollah and Syria's Bashar al-Assad if they persisted. Danon also warned Tehran that Israel has the ability to strike any target in the Middle East, including in Iran. He added that Israel would not tolerate attacks by Iranian proxies. Turkey's president has vowed to provide Syria with any support necessary in a pre-recorded New Year's video message released on Tuesday. The Turkish leader reiterated that he described as the dawn of a new era in neighboring Syria and said the establishment of stability would lead to the return of millions of refugees who have been living in Turkey. Turkey has taken in more Syrian refugees more than any other nation, more than 3.8 million at its peak in 2022, or roughly 60% of all the Syrian lodged by UN Refugees Agency UNHCR. Erdogan said his support and his country's full support in bolstering economic prosperity and peace in Syria will continue. Listen in.
2024 senesinin son haftaları köklü tarihi, beşeri ve komşuluk ilişkilerimizin bulunduğu Suriye'de yeni bir dönemin kıvılcımı oldu. Yeni dönemin Suriye'de kalıcı barışa, huzura, istikrara ve ekonomik refaha kapı aralaması için gereken her türlü desteği sağlayacağız. Suriye'de istikrar ortamı kök saldıkça inanıyorum ki 13 yıldır vatan hasreti çeken Suriyeli muhacirlerin gönüllü geri dönüşü de kolaylaşacaktır.
A new virus is taking over the US, the norovirus. The country is seeing a surge in norovirus outbreaks across the country, according to the US Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Cases of the highly contagious stomach bug have been rising recently since early December, with a noticeable spike in the number of outbreaks compared to previous years. Norovirus is notorious for causing sudden vomiting and diarrhea, and it is highly contagious, often spreading quickly in environments where people are in close proximity. In the first week of December, the CDC reported 91 outbreaks of norovirus, a significant increase from the 69 outbreaks recorded the week before in late November. Now, even as the world welcomes 2025, the echoes of the COVID-19 pandemic still resonate across nations. The World Health Organization, 5 years after the outbreak, is still waiting for the crucial data it says it needed to understand the origins of the virus that reshaped the globe. On Monday, the WHO issued an urgent appeal to China, calling for transparency and access to vital information that could unlock the mystery of how COVID-19 first emerged. It emphasized that without transparency and cooperation, the world risks being caught off guard by future generations. But China's response on Tuesday was swift and defiant. The country's foreign ministry insisted they had already shared crucial information with the world, including the viral gene sequence early on in the pandemic, and they dismissed any claims of withholding any data with them. Yet, despite China's claims, the questions persist. While most scientists agree the virus originated in Wuhan, the origin remains shrouded in uncertainty. For months, the world believed the virus likely spread from animals to humans at a local wet market. But speculation about a possible lab leak has never died down. Fueled by high-profile voices, including former President Donald Trump, the WHO sent a team to Wuhan in 2021 to investigate both the wet market and the controversial lab. But their findings offered no definitive answers. The global search for the truth is far from over. For now, the world waits for data, for answers, and for the transparency that could prevent another crisis. Sarah McBride had made history at the Delaware State Senate as the first openly transgender state senator in the country. Now, she is making history again. The 34-year-old U.S. Republican-elect will be sworn in as the first openly transgender member in Congress on Jan 3. The Democrats' political victory comes during a reckoning for transgender rights and after an election filled with campaign ads and politicians demeaning trans people. But McBride still easily won her blue state's only seat in the U.S. House of Representatives. The 2024 was a year marked by elections around the world. Roughly 70 countries headed to the ballots, with some re-electing incumbent governments and others signaling a desire for change. From Narendra Modi coming back to power for a historic third term to Donald Trump's forceful comeback as the 47th president of the US, here is a look at a few significant elections from around the world.
"2024, a year filled with political turmoil, a year of political decisions that will shape nations for decades to come. 2024 was a tumultuous year for global democracy, where a fifth of the world's population from over 70 countries headed to the ballot box. While the US saw a fiercely contested race, Europe saw a swing to the right, with far-right parties such as Marine Le Pen's National Rally emerging in the European Union polls. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka, in its first election since recovering from a financial crisis, elected its first left-leaning president. 2024 was not the year for the incumbents. Voters across the globe made their voice clear. Their message: you're fired. From the US to Sri Lanka, Japan, France and Britain, voters tired of economic disruption and global instability rejected sitting governments and even turned to disruptive outsiders. Here's a look at some of the key elections that transformed global politics. Let's start somewhere closer home, with India. India, the largest democracy in the world and the most populous, saw Prime Minister Narendra Modi return to power for a historic third term, with the Bharatiya Janata Party-led NDA coalition securing the majority in the general elections, although with a smaller margin. Meanwhile, regional parties shone on the national stage under the India bloc. Asia saw several other crucial elections. While dynasties influenced some, many rejected the old guard. Pakistan, where despite populist leader Imran Khan being behind bars, his party, the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, won the most seats in the elections. However, after weeks of turmoil, ultimately the Pakistan Muslim League N formed the government with Shehbaz Sharif as Prime Minister. Yet in a curveball, Sri Lanka picked left-leaning National People's Power leader Anura Kumara Dissanayake as its next president, rejecting all its traditional picks. In Europe, several countries including France and UK saw the far right emerge victorious this election season. June's parliamentary elections in the 27-member European Union saw conservative populists and far-right factions challenging the ruling parties in France and Germany, the bloc's most prominent and influential nations. Meanwhile, UK's July election saw the Conservatives ousted with 14 years in office as the Labour Party swept to power in a landslide. Yet, voter turnout was at a record low in 20 years. Struggling from an economic and healthcare crisis, the country saw an emergence of the hard right party Reform UK, led by Nigel Farage. In France too, Marine Le Pen's National Rally grew stronger, despite not being able to secure a majority. A wave of anti-incumbency also swept Africa. From South Africa to Senegal, Ghana and Botswana, all saw incumbents who have been in power for decades defeated. The most significant amongst them, the collapse of the African National Congress in South Africa. The party, once headed by Nelson Mandela, lost its majority for the first time since the end of apartheid. forcing it into a coalition with opposition parties. Meanwhile, amid wars, both Iran and Russia held polls. Iran, in a surprise move, elected a reformist president, Masoud Pezeshkian, after the death of former President Ibrahim Raisi, while Russian President Putin cemented his tight grip on power with 6 more years. However, the year's most consequential election was yet to come. After a fierce fight against Vice President Kamala Harris on everything from abortion, immigration to the economy, Donald Trump secured a landslide victory in November's US presidential elections, leaving the world on the edge for what the unpredictable America First leader will do in his second term at the White House. From his tariff threats against Canada, Mexico and India, to threatening to buy the Panama Canal and Greenland, Trump has also set the ball going.
It seems democracy's bumpy ride will continue well into 2025, with many more incumbents put to the test. From Germany's Olaf Scholz to Canada's Justin Trudeau, all heading to crucial elections where far-right opposition parties are already being favored by the voters. All eyes will be on the voters to see what they decide. Disha Bagchi for NDTV.
From Sydney to Mumbai to Nairobi, communities around the world began welcoming 2025 with spectacular light shows, embraces and ice plunges. New Zealand and Australia welcomed the new year 2025 with vibrant celebrations and spectacular fireworks display. Thousands gathered to witness the dazzling fireworks as the world marked another rotation around the sun. Here are the glimpses of the world celebrating New Year. Take a look and a very happy New Year.
I now request the Honorable Prime Minister to launch NDTV World and address the summit.
It was the grand launch of NDTV World by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. NDTV World, as he laid out his vision for the India century at the NDTV World Summit.
ऐसी सदी जिसमें भारत के प्रयासों से दुनिया में स्थिरता आए,
in the presence of those who are shaping our future.
मेरी तरफ से आपको ढेर सारी शुभकामनाएं हैं.
NDTV World, your new home for global news is here. In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news is here.
This is NDTV, and you're watching NDTV 24/7.
Hello and a very good morning to everyone who's watching NDTV right now. I'm Aditi Bhardwaj and we at NDTV wish you a very happy New Year. Let's take a look at the top headlines that we are tracking here at this hour. World rings in 2025 with the cheers, fireworks light up 2024's last night sky. Debate continues to rage over the H-1B visas in the United States. Elon Musk calls the system broken and says it needs reform. Will Trump revise H-1B visa system after takeover on Jan 20? Remains to be seen. Donald Trump lashes out at Democrats, alleges they are delaying the confirmation process of many of his nominees for key positions. China versus the WHO on COVID data. WHO claims they are still awaiting data on origins of COVID. China defends transparency on COVID data, claims they shared all the information they had. And ISRO is ecstatic with the SpaceX success. It will announce its 100th mission in January. This will be the landmark 100th mission, which will be on board the GSLV Mk2 rocket. And India celebrates the arrival of 2025 with unparalleled enthusiasm and fervor. With vibrant celebrations at every corner, this marks the start of a new year full of hopes, dreams and possibilities. From the grandeur of firework displays, music and intimate family gatherings, the atmosphere is one of joy and participation and anticipation. Well, what are you hoping for this new year? Remains to be seen if it will fulfill or not, as this is the time of making new resolutions. Well, people gathered at Gateway of India and other landmark places in around the country to welcome 2025 with full of hope, possibilities and others. These are the visuals on your screens of last night, that was of 2024, how the goodbye was done to 2024 and how night sky was lit up with fireworks. We saw celebrations in Chennai, Mumbai, Bengaluru, Delhi. And when we are talking about Delhi, there were some restrictions that were imposed. Well, in Bengaluru also, there were restrictions on banning masks in public places, putting a ban on whistling to ensure there are no untoward incidents that are taking place while people are coming out on streets to celebrate the new year. In fact, when we talk about Delhi, Delhi police had implemented extensive traffic arrangements and restrictions across the city, focusing especially on the heart of Delhi, which is the Connaught Place. Nearly 20,000 police and paramilitary personnel were deployed to maintain law and order for New Year's Eve. And visuals from Shimla, Himachal and the hilly areas where people went out to celebrate especially showed how people enjoyed snow as well as welcoming the new year. My colleague Anuj Raita is joining me from Mumbai. Anuj, a very good morning to you and also a very happy new year. How did you celebrate the new year and how were the arrangements of Mumbai police? Were they effective?
Happy New Year, Aditi. Yes, the arrangement of the Mumbai police were very much in place, and an example of that is the Girgaon Chowpatty beach where I'm present at the moment. Well, this is one of the 4 or 5 major centers where hundreds of thousands of people thronged to celebrate their New Year. And as you can clearly see in the limited screen behind me, we can see that life has already returned back to normalcy, as we've seen youngsters come here to play cricket, football, and people to enjoy their morning jogs. And that literally hours after so many people were present here, to celebrate New Year is a big achievement for Mumbai police. And it was always going to be so, considering that, there were close to 12 to 13,000 police officials deployed here, to look after the safety of the people. But considering that it's New Year and I'm here at the Girgaon Chowpatty beach, I've got a couple of youngsters here who have come here on the New Year's Day, and we'd like to know from them how exactly do they look forward to it. Could you? आपका नाम क्या है सर?
अनिकेत सकपाल.
करते क्या हो?
अभी मैं जॉब ढूंढ रहा हूँ. अभी रिसेंटली ग्रेजुएट हुआ. नयन कल्लू सर.
आप क्या करते हैं?
मैं अभी जॉब कर रहा हूँ.
आप बताइए कि आप कहाँ से हो और आप यहाँ पे बेसिकली 1st of January न्यू ईयर के दिन क्या करें?
तो सेलिब्रेट करके आए, सोचा कि जनवरी यहाँ पे स्पेंड करते हैं, पॉजिटिव एटमॉस्फेयर, थोड़ा फुटबॉल खेल लेंगे ऐसे। मैं अमरनाथ से हूँ और हम लोग मतलब इतने साल में हम दोनों ने भी मतलब कभी भी ऐसा मुंबई में रहते हैं लेकिन कभी भी ऐसे बीच पे आके 31st कभी सेलिब्रेट नहीं किया था। तो इस टाइम हम लोगों ने सोचा कि वाई नॉट मतलब बीच पे जाए इस बार और सनराइज भी यहीं पे देखे, न्यू ईयर की शुरुआत पहली बार कुछ अलग ढंग से करे, मतलब अलग ट्राई करके करे, तो इसलिए हम लोगों ने यहाँ पे चूज़ किया।
आपके एक्सपीरियंस में ये जो पूरा पुलिस का सिक्योरिटी वगैरह था, जो अरेंजमेंट था, क्या वो सेटिस्फैक्टरी था? क्या आपको लगा कि दे डिड अ गुड जॉब? अभी हम देख रहे हैं कि अभी भी क्लीनिंग वगैरह चल रही है। सो कंसिडरिंग कि आप बाहर से आए हो यहाँ पे न्यू ईयर सेलिब्रेट करने के लिए एज एन आउटसाइडर, आपका व्यू कैसे? डू यू थिंक दैट द अरेंजमेंट्स वर गुड?
अरेंजमेंट्स तो हम जब रात में यहाँ पे आए तो तभी तो सिक्योरिटी की मतलब तभी बीच चालू नहीं था, तो फिलहाल तभी तो सिक्योरिटी की ज़रूरत नहीं थी, लेकिन फिर भी पुलिस की बंदोबस्त थी। हमने जब एंट्री की तो तभी पुलिस वाले थे यहाँ पे। जब हम ट्रैवल कर रहे थे तो वहाँ पे भी पुलिस वाले थे, सबको प्रॉपरली गाइड कर रहे थे कि कहाँ जाना है, कहाँ नहीं, कैसे जाना है। तो अच्छा था, पुलिस सब हेल्प कर रहे थे। हम ट्रेन से भी आ रहे थे तभी वो गाइड कर रहे थे हम लोग को करके आप कहाँ से कहाँ जाना है आपको, और सब बता रहे थे। सेफ्टी का भी ध्यान रख रहे थे वो, अगर मतलब कोई डेंजर में है तो उनको अंदर कर रहे थे ट्रैवलिंग के वक्त लोकल ट्रेन में वगैरह।
आप फाइनली मुझे बताइए कि वी आर स्टेपिंग इनटू 2025 एज यंगस्टर्स, how do you look at it? Very briefly tell me कि आपके what are your plans for new year? What are your resolution personally?
पर्सनल रिजोल्यूशंस तो है, जैसे अभी मैं जॉब कर रहा हूँ तो बेटर जॉब, बेटर सैलरी, प्लस अगर फ्यूचर में मुझे अभी फ्यूचर स्टडीज़ भी करना है तो उसके लिए मुझे अभी जैसे
All right. Yeah, these were the voices of some of the youngsters here who are very excited to celebrate 2025, and they've started it from Girgaon Chowpatty here in South Mumbai.
Right, Anuj, thank you so much, and I hope you also have a very good new year. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. And let's take a look at how the world celebrated New Year. Well, from Sydney to Mumbai to Nairobi, communities around the world began welcoming 2025 with spectacular light shows, embraces and ice plunges. New Zealand and Australia welcomed the New Year 2025 with vibrant celebrations and spectacular fireworks display. Thousands gathered to witness the dazzling fireworks as the world marked another rotation around the sun. Here are the glimpses of how the world celebrated. Remember, fireworks lit up the Auckland skyline as massed crowds watched. These are the breathtaking scenes from around the world. Iconic places were lit up with the fireworks and lights, and people came out in huge numbers to welcome 2025 in their own style. These are the visuals that we have of celebrations across the globe. 2025 is the year of hope, prosperity, and a lot more is expected. People are wishing around the world a very happy new year, and we at NDTV also extend these greetings to our viewers and hope that these celebrations also light up their life. In a bold call to action, US President-elect Donald Trump has urged his party to stand firm as his cabinet nominees face an intense confirmation battle in the Senate. On Tuesday, Trump took to social media and X and said, warning Republicans to be smart and tough as Senate Democrats prepare to challenge his picks. Trump posted, and I'm quoting here, "We just won a historic landslide and mandate from the American people, but Senate Democrats are organizing to improperly stall and delay the confirmation process of many of our great nominees. Republicans must not allow them to do that." The US President-elect's words come as the Senate prepares to begin hearings next week for his cabinet selections, nominees who will play key roles in shaping his administration's agenda. Despite a 53-47 Republican majority, the battle ahead is far from easy. While some of Trump's picks, like Florida Senator Marco Rubio for Secretary of State and Congresswoman Elise Stefanik for UN ambassador are expected to gain bipartisan support. Others are already facing fierce opposition. Democrats have expressed significant reservations about some high-profile nominees, including Pete Hegseth for Defense Secretary, Tulsi Gabbard for Director of National Intelligence, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for Health and Human Services. In the coming days, the Senate may deploy procedural tactics to slow the confirmation process, putting the heat on Republicans to hold their ground. The political stage is set for a high-stakes showdown that could define the early days of Trump's presidency. Even as the world welcomes 2025, the echoes of the COVID-19 pandemic still resonate across nations. The World Health Organization, 5 years after the outbreak, is still waiting for the crucial data it says is needed to understand the origins of the virus that reshaped the globe. On Monday, the WHO issued an urgent appeal to China, calling for transparency and access to vital information that could unlock the mystery of how COVID-19 first emerged. It emphasized that without transparency and cooperation, the world risks being caught off guard by future epidemics. But China's response on Tuesday was swift and defiant. The country's foreign ministry insisted they had already shared critical information with the world, including the viral gene sequence early on in the pandemic, and they dismissed any claims of withholding any data. Yet, despite China's claims, the questions persist. While most scientists agree the virus originated in Wuhan, the origin remains shrouded in uncertainty. For months, the world believed the virus likely spread from animals to humans at a local wet market. But speculations about a possible lab leak has never died down, fueled by high-profile voices including former President Donald Trump. The WHO sent a team to Wuhan in 2021 to investigate both the wet market and the controversial lab. But their findings offered no definitive answers. The global search for the truth is far from over. For now, the world waits for data, for answers, and for the transparency that could prevent another crisis. And now, in a bizarre and eye-catching incident, a high-tech electric car belonging to a Rajasthan municipal opposition leader was towed by bullocks after breaking down mid-journey. The video of this unusual scene has captured social media's attention, sparking conversations about the reliability of electric vehicles. Well, this car belongs to Anil Singh, who serves as the opposition leader of the Kuchaman Nagar Parishad in the Dwana district. He was driving his electric car through the city when it suddenly stopped functioning. Stranded on the road with no immediate access to professional towing services, the situation quickly escalated into a spectacle, and local farmers came forward to help. The water 30 feet high that burst out of the earth in Jaisalmer when a tube well was being dug in a field on Saturday has once again led to the circulation of theories that believe that the mythical river Saraswati still flows under the Jaisalmer. My colleague Harsha Kumari reports more. Take a look.
Water 30 feet high, gushing out of the earth. The water burst out with a loud sound while a tube well was being dug in a field in Jaisalmer's Mohangarh area.
जो पानी नहर में नहीं है इस कारण का ट्यूबवेल करा रहा था। ट्यूबवेल 700 कुछ ऊपर फुट में खुदाई करके बाद ये राड़े निकाल रहे थे। पूरी राड़े निकाल ली, 7 राड़े अंदर रही। अंदर 7 राड़े रहते अचानक ही एक विस्फोट टाइप ही पानी बाहर निकला। कम से कम 60 फुट की ऊंचाई में लहरें देने लग गया।
The impact caused the borewell digging equipment weighing over 22 tons to cave into the ground. Water accompanied by gases continuously gushed out for 50 hours before subsiding. But many researchers in the area believe the water column that gushed out could be from the extinct Saraswati river basin.
ये सरस्वती नदी का बहाव क्षेत्र है और निश्चित ही जो बहाला में मोनगढ़ क्षेत्र के बहाला में अभी जो खुदाई के दौरान जल एकदम प्राप्त हुआ है वह उसी जल स्रोत का ही एक हिस्सा है.
For now, until a scientific investigation into the incident is completed, the area has been cordoned off by the district administration. With Srikant Vyas in Jaisalmer, Harsha Kumari Singh, NDTV.
If this new year you have a resolution to eating healthy, then our story might help you to stay fit. Well, Millet Marvels has come to the rescue, offering healthy options which are millet-based. This is Hyderabad startup's food mission to provide healthy food options to the people. And it is a first of its kind millet food hub. Take a look at the report brought in by Tanishka Datta.
Switching to healthier food options that are also as tasty has never been easier. In today's busy age, when nobody has the time to prepare a healthy, balanced meal, this Hyderabad-based startup, Millet Marvels, aims to change the way you eat. If you're someone who feels noodles, biryani, cakes and breads taste the best when made with refined flour or white rice, then this millet-based food outlet will change your mind. Millet Marvels also sells whole grains. The grains are sourced from farmers in Telangana's Vikarabad, the Rayalaseema region in Andhra Pradesh, and some parts of Karnataka. Dr. Bharat Reddy, a cardiologist and a Telugu actor, founded Millet Marvels in 2020, which offers a wide range of food items from breakfast musts like dosa, uttapam to chicken 65.
Am I eating fast food or healthy food? I really can't tell the difference because these are millet noodles. Millets have been brought about to fast food scenarios now with Millet Marvel. This is an initiative that has been started by Dr. Bharat Reddy here. Thank you so much for speaking to NDTV, sir. Sir, right off the bat, what was the initiative, the idea, the inspiration behind this?
So this was way behind in 2012-13. So we have noted that there's been incredible increase in diabetes and hypertension among patients. So the only way out to solve the problem was to change the way we eat. Like you must have seen the tagline of Millet Marvels, changing the way India eats. So we are now just trying to bring back the ancient food, what we have been consuming way back 200 years back. We are trying to bring back the same food again. So that's been the initiative to change the patient's lifestyle, or basically for the common man to understand what we have been eating is wrong, to correct ourselves and get back to our old eating ways. Millet Marvels is the only authentic millet kitchen on this planet. We don't use polished millet, we don't use white sugar, we don't use maida, we don't use anything that is white, including salt or sugar or anything into the cooking. So this concept basically is a social cause initiative concept. Millet Marvels was brought in as in to change, where there should not be anything that will actually harm the human body, but at the same time you should be able to bring in the best of the taste what common man eats with the junk food, like McD or a go there eat a pizza. Like you must have seen, we have sandwiches, you must have seen we have all the bakery products. All these are free of maida. These are all millet based products.
This is exactly the kind of food that you should be eating when you are out and about to catch your flight, or even incorporating on a daily basis in your diet. Millet Marvels is, currently at Hyderabad Airport and other places in the city as well, and is looking forward to move to Noida and Bangalore as well. So fast food, healthy food.
Superfood. Superfood.
with camera person Narsimha. This is Tanushka Datta in Hyderabad for NDTV.
The first bullet train trial will be held near Surat, and we have a video that shows an inside look of the train station being built in the city for the bullet train project. The facade of the station has a diamond design symbolic of the spirit of the city, which is known as the diamond capital of India. ISRO has ended on a high note this 2024 with the successful launch of its 99th mission, the Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle or PSLV C-60, which has two significant experimental missions, SpaceX and POM-4. Even as these experiments continue into the new year, the Indian Space Agency looks to ride the high wave and has made a big announcement. Indian Space Agency Chairman S. Somanath declared that 2025's first mission will be ISRO's landmark 100th mission. It will be in January, he confirmed, but did not reveal the date of it being planned. So far, let's take a look at the exclusive conversation that my colleague Pallava had. Take a look.
Dr. Singh, we had this launch of the space docking experiment. What does that mean for India? And the big vision which has been created by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Give me a little bit on that.
No, thank you, Pallav. Thank you, first of all, for having me with you. And also, I must appreciate your keen interest in all our scientific endeavors, including those related to the Department of Space, which is, I'm sure, going to create a lot of interest in the minds of the common citizens as well. Now, as you rightly mentioned, as far as the Department of Space is concerned and our space missions are concerned, I think the credit entirely goes to Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi, because for the first time he enabled us to engage all these stakeholders. In fact, a whole of science and a whole of nation approach, with the private participants also stepping up in a big way. Now, you would recall, because you've been following this sector for a pretty long time, there were times when space sector was virtually forbidden to the private sector, and even those working in the Department of Space or at ISRO or in Sriharikota had reconciled to the fact that it would never open up. So, in fact, they had almost given up that demand. But after 2014, when this was put across to Prime Minister Modi, he was so forthcoming. He allowed us to engage in public-private participation. In fact, in order to facilitate that, we were allowed to set up an interface called InSpace, then a new PSU called ISIL. And there has been a huge investment in the space sector, as a result of which space economy is very fast emerging as an important component of overall Indian economy. We hope to go up by 3-4 times at least in the next 8 or 9 years. And the budget that you were referring to by the government of about 21,000 crore as a part of our missions for the next few years, as a part of the Amrit Kal 2047 mission, is itself a testimony to the fact the priority which the government gives to this sector, which was not forthcoming during the earlier governments, because it was never a very prioritized sector. So I think that's going to make a difference. On the one hand, it's going to give India an esteem. India is already a frontline nation in the Community Awards. And the other hand is going to give India a technology enough to bring ease of living in the lives of the people of the country.
Now, on space docking, what does that enable us? Is it an enabling technology so that India can now, from just being a nation which was launching, becomes a spacefaring nation where you can do multiple objectives in space?
Yeah, of course, as you rightly mentioned in your question itself, we are among the league of just 4 nations. We are the 4th one who have entered into this, and the other 3, in fact, had been attempting and experimenting for pretty long, many years. We started off early, but we are there. And as you rightly mentioned, to go over to the next level, we need this docking and undocking. It's just like walking from one space aircraft to the other, which would enable us in carrying out the transfer of payloads, transfer of important materials, maybe one day also movement of one human astronaut from one space vehicle into the other, to and to fro, which is going to be cost effective, also going to be imperative for us, because otherwise what was the practice till now was that you would send up the satellite when the life of it was exhausted, or you had stopped receiving the inputs, or the fuel was exhausted, then you would give up its services. So you lost the satellite lost you. Now you could even, supplement the fuel necessities, the batteries, etc. If you thought you could, you wanted to have it in place for more than the scheduled time, beyond 2 years or so, you could actually, enable it to do so. And since we are also planning to have our own space station by 2035 called the Bharatiya Antariksh Station, there also, in order to carry out the transport of all these materials will be required. And I think another important part which gives us a lot of esteem is that this is being accomplished totally on the basis of indigenous technology. That's why it's been appropriately named Bharatiya Docking System.
And with that, it comes to the end of this news edition. We are leaving you with the pictures of how the world celebrated New Year. From Sydney to Mumbai to Nairobi, communities around the world began welcoming 2025 with spectacular light shows, embraces and ice plunges. New Zealand and Australia welcomed the New Year 2025 with vibrant celebrations and spectacular fireworks display. These are the visuals of how thousands came out to celebrate the New Year with much fervor.